Okay, this will be like an abbreviated tutorial for the hunting tier tray, just in case I have anybody new who wants some tips and tricks. The first thing that I do when I do my tier tray sets is I like to separate them into piles according to color. If you want to go piece by piece and use the picture as reference, that's totally fine. I like to go color by color because then it prevents like your wedges from drying out. So I have everything that's going to be cream in this pile. I have the black pieces over here, the green pieces over here. And then I was painting these in batches, and I already painted my brown pieces and forgot to leave them out because I was painting a lot of other pieces. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to do that. So to create a stained look using paint, because I cannot mail paint or I don't have containers that are safe to put stain in. So in order to make paint look like stain, you need a damp baby wipe. If your baby wipe is dried out, then just either spritz it with some water or put some water on your hand and just kind of crunch your baby wipe just to get it damp. You don't want it dripping wet, but if it's dry, it's not going to work. So, oh, I forgot to mention, you'll want to protect your surface so that you don't get any paint on it. And then you're gonna need something to dab paint on. I like to use the box that I mailed your kits in, or really any piece of cardboard. I just hold that onto the side. So your brown is obviously going to be in a little paint tub, but you're going to wrap the baby wipe around 2 fingers, and then I lightly dip into the paint, and then just go with the direction of the wood grain. You can see how the wood grain is running this way, and then you just wipe it on. Now, if you decide, you know what, I want it to be a lighter color, while it's wet, you take a clean end of your wipe and you go back over it, and it significantly lightens it up. Or once you paint everything, then if you're just like, I actually want it to be darker, let it dry and do another coat. So that's what you're gonna do for the deer head, the Life is Better shiplap circle, the mountain cutout. And you wanna make sure that you don't go too crazy around these tree pine needles, I guess, the silhouette, so that you don't break off any of the little fragile silhouette pieces. And then this backer. Those are the brown pieces. Okay, let me know if you have questions on that. I'm gonna move on to the wedge portion. And I'm only gonna show you one color because then the process is the same, so you'll use a different wedge for each color. But we will start with cream because this will show you all of the techniques in one. I am going to start on the mountains etched backer because then I can talk about the shiplap, I can talk about the etching. So you're going to want to get your wedge. Let me press pause because I think I moved mine. Okay. Get your wedge, and then you're going to lightly dip it into your cream paint, and then get your cardboard and dab up and down so that you just have a flat, smooth line. You can't really tell because it's about the same color as the wedge, but you don't want it to be like bubbled with paint. Otherwise paint is gonna spill over the sides. It's gonna get into your shiplap lines. So you just wanna go slow and steady. That is gonna be the case for all this. Plan on doing 2 coats if you want the best coverage. If you plan on distressing your pieces because you want it to look rustic, like you're gonna sand them after, 1 coat is gonna be plenty. I did not sand this set, so again, now that mine is dry, I'm just gonna dab. Now when there's shiplap lines or etching, I'm gonna go where there isn't shiplap lines first. Mine kind of got dry. And then as the paint is coming off the wedge, lightly go over those shiplap lines. That's gonna prevent most of your paint from going into your lines. This one you don't have to go all the way to the bottom because this cutout will cover it. However, you want to make sure you do go to the side and mostly to the bottom. You don't have to go all the way, but because of that deer silhouette cutout, unless you don't care to have that and maybe you wanted the natural color, that's totally fine too. Okay, so now let's say I'm gonna go crazy. Okay, let's say I get tons of paint in my shiplap line. While it's wet, before I move on, as you can see, there's a lot of paint. You're gonna get your toothpick and all you're gonna do is drag it through that line and it clears the paint right out. So don't worry, if you get it in there, it's totally fixable. Now for the etching, that is harder to get all of the paint out. So I'm basically just gonna like start here to get most of the paint off, and I'm just gonna do the lightest taps over that etching. And I will plan on going over it multiple times just to make sure that it has all of the coverage. But it's better to go super light over the etching versus having to try to clear the paint out. In my experience, it looks a lot messier. The shiplap lines are one thing, you can easily clean it out, but the wording is much more difficult. So I just have more patience with that. I'm barely tapping on those words. Once I get to the shiplap lines, I get a little bit messier, just because I know that I can clean it out. Okay, so this is the technique you're gonna use for all the colors. I'm gonna paint all of my cream first. Like I say, I like to do all of one color at a time, just so that your wedge stays nice instead of drying up, because then you're kind of out of luck. This piece, yes, this one. So I did mine, if you're following the picture, it says life is better in the woods. Better is green, but the and this antler is cream. So I'm just gonna take my wedge and I'm just gonna go over like where it should stop, which is where the H kind of curves, then move it to the green pile and do the BETT in green. And same thing with Gone. I did my target in green. So I'm basically just gonna paint the whole thing cream, and then carefully, I like to, on little pieces like this, I use this end of the wedge, and then, cause then it's easier, you can curve it like this and really just get those little pieces that you need to. That makes it super easy. One other thing, I'm sorry, I'm looking over my pieces to see if there's any other questions I can answer. So these little pieces, they're a little bit harder to hold while you're painting. I always have paint all over my hands, but if you don't like that, I send your first kit that has smaller pieces with, they're blue tweezers, they're plastic. I have mine in another room, so I'm just using these ones. But it's basically just so that you can hold, like, for instance, I'll do it on this one. Like, you can hold your piece while you paint up and down to prevent it from, otherwise it's gonna come up with the paint and it's just gonna be a mess. So that's what your blue tweezers are for. I ask that you keep them like in your craft box or wherever, just so that you have them for other kits. And that is all. Oh, the last thing, if you want an extra smooth finish, this is to go above and beyond. You are not required to do this. I think I did a poll before. Most people don't do it, so it's totally fine if you don't. But once your piece is completely dry, I like to go through and paint all of the one color. Once that's done, then I go back to the beginning. I take my sandpaper and very lightly, you don't want to gouge it out because then you're going to remove too much paint unless you're distressing. That's a whole different thing. This is just to smooth. So a very, very light touch. I'm not even pressing down, and I just barely go over it. When you paint wood, it makes the grain raise a little bit. So that's why you feel a little bit of roughness after you paint it. And so if you just barely lightly go over, it's super smooth. So your last coat is gonna be a really nice, smooth finish. Again, if you don't have patience for it or you don't care, that is 100% optional. So then I'm just gonna do my second coat. Normally I would do my other pieces, but I've been talking too long and this is dry now. Okay, if you have any questions on painting, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm gonna press pause, finish painting everything, and then we'll come back when it's time to assemble. Okay, after you're done painting, make sure that you wait until everything is completely dry. If your backer pieces are even a little bit wet, once you put the adhesive down, it's gonna stick to the wet paint and pop right off. So it's not gonna last very long. So make sure that you wait till it's dry. I posted this on my page a while ago. If you do quite a few of my kits, I recommend that you get these sharp tweezers. They're pretty inexpensive. You get them in a package of, I don't know, I think I bought them in a package of 6. But anyways, let me know if you need the link again. I'm just gonna show you how to do the tag, just because it will be the tassel and how to use the adhesive, and then you'll know how to do your other pieces. So this is the gun tag. So you're gonna see the adhesive on the back of your piece. You can use your fingernail. It's not hard to peel it off. These just are so much better for the really little pieces. But you peel off all of the backing, and you can kind of see how it's shiny. That's the adhesive. So stick this down on the etching. Sorry, I'm trying to see the etching without getting my head in the way of the video. And then you just press down and it's stuck. It's instant. It's really nice. You don't have to mess with glue. If you've done my kits in the past where we used to use super glue, this is a much nicer option. And you basically just do that with, not basically, that is what you do with all the pieces. Sorry, there's like a shadow and I can't see the etching when I have it sitting down. So then you press and it's stuck. Now for the tassel. You need, the bag had 3 sizes of string. There's this really long piece, it's about 9 or 10 feet long. Set that, or no, actually no, that's the first thing you need. Then you have this middle piece, it's about 18 inches long. That's the one that you set aside for now. And then the smaller piece. So get the longest piece and find an end. And then I spread my fingers really wide and have like a tail just kind of lower, and then start wrapping. The reason I spread my fingers is I have a smaller hand and it gives it just a little bit more, like this is gonna be your tassel. So it just makes it a little bit longer. And then I just try to get the 2 end pieces about the same length. I'm cutting them off, so it doesn't need to be exact. And then I don't know if you saw, I have my pinky in the closed loop and I just kind of pinch it and then pull my finger out. And so it's about the top quarter of the loop. Take that smallest piece of string and you're gonna tie it around. So I leave this tail and I just wrap it around just a few times, really tight. And then I'm gonna tie it into a knot. Make it really tight. And then one piece is gonna go down and one sticks straight up. I like to trim the one that goes straight up. Don't trim it too close to the knot because you don't want it to unravel, because it's gonna loosen over time, but you definitely don't want it to unravel. Then what I do, I'm looking for a pencil, and I think I moved it. Just one sec. So I need to create like an eye to look through. So make sure that you don't miss any of the strings so that you don't pull them out. But that's why I had my pinky in there. It makes this a little bit easier. So now there is a little, if you can see that hole all the way through. That's where we take our middle string, thread it through that eye, and then tie that into a knot. So now we have what looks like this. So we've almost made a tassel, but that's a closed loop. So what you're going to do is just get your scissors and cut all the way off. And then I want to even out a little bit. So I'm just gonna go straight across. So there's your tassel. Now, the next thing you're gonna wanna do, and this is just gonna make your life easier, you wanna get 2 small pieces of Scotch tape. I mean, they really need to just be very small. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull this tight, and I'm going to tape whatever this leftover piece was. This is actually longer than I usually do, but I'm gonna tape that to the other string. Like so. And then I'm going to put this tape on this end. When you're threading your beads, if you don't have the tape on there, your thread or your twine, I'm like, what is the word? It will more than likely like fray and create a lot of frustration for you. So then I just thread my beads. This is the boring part. And that's why I tape the string to itself. It just makes it easier to thread all your beads down. Okay. So then you have your tassel. Your next step is you're gonna get your tag, and you're gonna gently but firmly press, make sure all the beads are pressed to the end of the tassel. If you tie it and your beads are spaced out like this, they're going to stay spaced out like that. And you're just gonna have big, huge gaps. So we don't want that. So press the beads all the way to the end of the tassel. Then I take the end of my twine and I go through the back of my tag, bring the tag so that it's touching the bead. I'm going to create a gap just so you can see it, but just know that I normally have it touching the bead. So then you're gonna take the end of your twine and you're going to put it behind the string in between the bead and the tag. So it goes behind like this, and that creates a loop, and bring the end through that hole. Again, I want my tag to be touching so that it's tight, and then pull it tight. And then repeat that process to create a knot. So go behind that string, and then the end goes through that loop and pull it tight. And that's a knot. And then I'm going to thread back up through, I usually do 2 to 3 beads. And then I just make sure that you're not cutting the twine that holds onto your tassel. Just cut off the taped portion. I need new scissors. And that's it. That is your tassel. If you need me to have my daughter hold the camera at a different angle so that you can see how to make the tassel more clearly with different viewpoints, please reach out to me and let me know. But basically now you're just gonna put each piece together. You can go off of the pictures. I'm not gonna show you because I don't wanna bore you. But again, if you have questions, reach out. I hope you've enjoyed making your hunting tier tray.